Welcome to the Pick the Brain podcast, where we pick the brains of the brightest minds in the areas of health, self-improvement, productivity, and kicking ass at life. I am Jeremy Fisher, always alongside my co-host Erin Falconer. Well, Erin, today we are going to talk about people that drain you, and I'm happy we're going to talk about this. I have someone in my life that drains me. Let's call this person Karen Falconer. And I'm really glad we're finally getting an opportunity to talk about this.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right, let's jump in. Seven mind hacks to permanently erase the people-pleaser mentality. From Pick the Brain Friends' Conscious Reset. Being a people-pleaser can become a soul-draining habit. That's because a lot of people will be willing to walk right over you if you allow them that freedom. Like any other limiting mentality, the people-pleaser mentality arises out of negative thought patterns in your subconscious mind. Such thought patterns generally develop from negative childhood experiences. For example, a parent who is disapproving of you who made you feel that you're not good enough. Now when your mind is conditioned with such limiting beliefs, you're automatically drawn to seek validation from others, which lays the foundation for the people-pleaser mentality. If you believe that there is a people-pleaser inside you, then you already have taken the first step towards overcoming this habit. You've recognized that you have the mentality. The next important step is to rewire your brain, which is possible thanks to neuroplasticity, our brain's awesome ability to disregard old thought patterns and create new ones in its place. Based on that premise, the following are some techniques that will help you rewire your brain and hence kick this limiting habit for good. Number 1, become conscious of the negative thought pattern. Every mentality arises out of a thought pattern in your subconscious mind. A thought pattern is a neural network that gets created in your brain. Think of this thought pattern as a little entity of its own. It's existed and sustained itself over years of reinforcement. The good news is that the brain has the power to change. It can discard old thought patterns and create new ones in its place. This ability of the brain is known as neuroplasticity. So how can you make this change? The most important step in discarding negative thought patterns is to become aware of the pattern. When you become conscious of a pattern, it's no longer hiding away in the depths of your subconscious mind. Just by recognizing it, you bring it to the forefront for further questioning and examination. It's like catching a fugitive in their hideout. Here's a simple exercise to become conscious of negative thought patterns. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Now bring to your mind a recent event where you felt obligated to say yes. Try to relive this moment in your mind. Now see if you can identify the thought pattern behind that action by asking yourself a series of why questions. Why did you say yes? Listen to your answers consciously. If you analyze your answers, you'll realize that these are just innocent beliefs that your mind picked up when you were still very young. You'll realize that these beliefs might have helped you as a child to cope with the situation at hand, but as an adult, these beliefs are baseless. Also, as you ask yourself these questions, you start getting familiarized with this thought pattern. The next step is to become familiarized with the emotion this thought pattern generates in you. Number 2, feel the thought-emotion connection. Every thought pattern has an underlying emotional response that is found in the body. So establishing the thought-emotion connections help you understand the thought pattern better. Repeat the reliving the moment exercise we just talked about, but now instead of focusing on the thought, divert all of your attention to the feeling this thought generated in your body. Do you feel any sensations? How do those sensations feel? Where do you feel them? Is it in and around your heart or your gut or your throat? Study that feeling as deeply as you can, because as you become conscious of that feeling, it will start to lose its grip on you. The next time you feel it, it'll be much easier for you to deal with it as you're already conscious of it. Also, now that you're conscious of the thought pattern and the associated emotion, it will be much easier to catch the thought pattern as it arises next time. You won't be taken in by the thought pattern as easily. Instead, you'll have the option to be responsive rather than reactive. You'll no longer be compelled to say yes when you don't want to, but will have an option to think it through and maybe say no. Number 3, use affirmations. Affirmations are a great way to start reprogramming your negative thought patterns. You can simply listen to affirmations, say them out loud, or even say them in your mind. You can say things like, "There's nothing that's too good for me. I deserve all the good that life has to offer." Or, "My happiness is not dependent on other people, and it's not up to me to make others happy." Or, "I am self-reliant, creative, and persistent in whatever I do." The best time to say these affirmations is right before you go to bed or as soon as you wake up in the morning. Number 4, become a no person for some time. A powerful way to change a thought pattern is to start doing things differently. Because you've been habituated to say yes, the best way to discard this habit is to go to the other side of the spectrum and start saying no. Do this on a day-to-day basis. Every morning, say to yourself you are the first priority and that you're going to say no to things that don't appeal to you. If something doesn't feel right, you're going to say no. Sometimes you need to go to the other extreme in order to bring things back into balance. Number 5, practice saying no with assertion. When you say no, you should say it with a sense of assertiveness without sounding meek. Don't feel obligated to give a reason to justify your answer. If you do that, you might come across as weak and be easily pressured into making the decision you didn't want to make by someone else. Number 6, reassure your mind that you are not at fault. Because this is new territory, the first few times you say no, you're going to feel emotions of guilt that will make you feel bad. But don't give in to those emotions. Understand that there is nothing outright good or bad in life, that everything is a matter of perspective. Ask yourself, why do I feel bad? The answer you might receive is, well, I think I may have hurt this person by saying no. But reassure yourself that this person is an adult and needs to be mature enough to handle their hurt. It's their problem that they took you for granted and expected you to reply with an affirmative. So if they hurt for that, it's not your fault. Give yourself these kinds of reassuring suggestions whenever your mind throws up a guilt-filled emotion. Number 7, stay mindful of your attention. The more motivated we are to change, the more readily our brain discards negative thought patterns and replaces it with empowering ones. One of the most important things you can do to aid this positive change is to stay mindful of your attention. If you find your attention focused on thoughts of worry that you've hurt someone, consciously refocus it on empowering thoughts. By not giving your attention to negative thought patterns, you're making these connections weak, and that is how neuroplasticity works. According to author and neuroscientist Rick Hansen, neural connections that are relatively inactive wither away. That means when you devoid a thought pattern of unconscious attention and consciously divert your attention to positive thought patterns, the negative patterns tend to wither away. Focus meditation can be immensely helpful in this regard, and it can help you stay conscious of your attention, thereby helping you to gain more control over your attention. As you do these exercises, you'll find yourself becoming free from the people-pleaser mentality along with other related limiting mentalities that are holding you back. Because all these mentalities are connected, touching one thought pattern automatically starts to bring forth your conscious vision and other limiting thought patterns that you can also discard. And finally, let's end with an empowering quote from the great Dr. Seuss. Be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. All right, Erin, we just heard those 7 mind hacks. Did anything stand out to you?
A couple of things stood out to me, yes. I love the first point about becoming conscious of a negative thought pattern because, I hate to repeat myself, but again, so much of our problems could be solved by a little self-analysis and just watching our behavior and how we react to those around us. We do so much dialing in, just going through the motions. And so just this idea of kind of sitting with yourself and watching, how you're feeling with somebody around you, as opposed to just, at the end of the week feeling really drained. Now you can start to really point fingers towards what is causing that. And that is the biggest step towards solving those problems, right? Is being aware. So can't be said enough, regardless of what the problem is, but specifically around this people pleaser mentality. Be aware of when you start to have these negative thoughts come up and how you're reacting, and what the cause is. So that would be the first thing. The second thing that I really like is we hear all the time, say no more, say no more. I have a whole chapter about that, basically devoted to that in my book. But what I like about this, and it's simple, is this idea of practicing saying no. Sounds stupid, sounds easy. Probably the hardest word to say, actually, in the English language. And it's amazing. But if you start in small ways by saying no on small things, and to feel the kind of sense of satisfaction and kind of the strength you get out of it, it's amazing how much easier it becomes. And it's situations and you thought you could never say no to a person before now becomes a little more doable and a little more doable. So start like practicing with just again on the smaller stuff, saying no to the smaller stuff. It's amazing how much easier than on the bigger stuff saying, and the stuff that really really matters to say no on, that it becomes much more doable, much less daunting.
No, I agree with you. It's like it's something that I think the practicing the art of no, practicing saying no more often it's a practical step.
Right.
You know, it's something that you can just do,
Right.
and it will help you stay out of your head. And I like this idea. It doesn't necessarily just have to be things that you don't want to do, too. I mean, I would even say it might make sense to just say, you know what? No matter what anyone asks me today, if they want me to do something for them, the answer is going to be no.
Right.
And that will make somebody very uncomfortable. Really, like
Right.
obviously you can't do this at work where your boss wants you to do something. You're like, no.
Yes, disclaimer. Please don't do this at work and then sue us.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, if you're in a situation where you feel like your family members, your friends, whatever, some aspect of a toxic relationship, or not even toxic, but a person that's in your life that constantly wants you to do things for them, and you say no, that will probably introduce a little bit of conflict that you'll have to deal with and make you a little bit uncomfortable. And I think it's a good exercise, honestly. I think it could be something that you could just test out and see how you react to it. And when you feel that uncomfortability, when you feel that like, that pit in your stomach where you're like, I really didn't want to say no. I really feel like I'm hurting this person even though I'm not.
Right.
That is something that you can be like, then you can really go deep and analyze, why do I feel that way?
Right.
Why does it bother me so much to say no? Is there something really that I feel like I need to get from this person by doing this? I mean, is it insecurity that I have? Whatever it is, I like that it's an actual, like you said, a practice that you can do, something you can implement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Erin, are you a people pleaser?
If you had to guess.
I would say no.
Ding, 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 ding. No, I'm not a people pleaser. I mean, there have been moments in my life, though, for sure, and I hate the feeling. I know the feeling, and I hate it. We all get in those positions in life where we're not feeling the strongest. We feel compromised. We feel like we've got to do more than we should to get places we need to go. And it's a really crappy feeling, to be honest with you. And so I have worked hard to not, the good thing is, once you get out of that people pleaser mentality, you're almost never going back to it. Because it's so liberating to live on the other side of that. It's, yeah.
As a recovering people pleaser, I will say that you're actually right about that.
And you're not saying that just to please me.
I promise I'm not. No. Trust me, I would like to disagree with you more than I do. I think it would be more interesting probably for the show. But no, at some point, I released myself from the obligations of others and the care of judgment that came with that. And that's not something that every single day I wake up and I'm like, I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. It's something I grew up with the turn the other cheek mentality.
Right.
On my side of the world, it was, you are supposed to turn the other cheek. Being a good guy means that you're always nice and you're never disrupting things. And at a certain point in time, that became not true to me. That became... It was the same guy that said turn the other cheek who went into a temple and like whipped the people with a whip, chasing the crooks out of the temple. You know what I mean? So like, which side of this conversation are you gonna pay attention to?
Right.
And the idea that you don't stand up for yourself because standing up for yourself is selfish is just, it's bullshit. And it took me a little while to learn that because, the culture that I was brought up in, the people that I was around, my family, they're all kind of meekish. They want to stay humble. They don't want to overstep bounds and that kind of thing. And I respect that. There's a level of respect that I have to that. But there's also a lot of being taken advantage of that I saw and didn't want that to happen to me. Yeah. And so it became really important to me to be very honest, like brutally honest, and accept the consequences of things that happened. And I still frame it in nicer ways, I think. Like I probably, if I'm angry with you, I probably won't call you an asshole like in a way that's fueled with anger, but you're going to know that I'm upset. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that I'm upset. It's not something that I'll be like kind of passively dealing with quietly, like some people that are pleasers that I know. So yeah, it's something that I was a people pleaser, used to be a people pleaser. I'm not anymore. I can say that. But it took a little bit of work. I mean, it's part of my environment, something that I had to change. And it's not just pleasing people very often that is an issue that people struggle with. A lot of times you've got someone that just drains you, like exhausts you to be around. So next we're going to hear about 5 ways to deal with people who drain you emotionally. 5 ways to deal with people who drain you emotionally. From Pick the Brain contributor, Minya. People who drain you emotionally are vampires. Yep, vampires. They're all around us, and while they might not bite your neck and suck your blood, these vampires are a lot more efficient and have plenty of people to feed on unnoticed. People who drain us emotionally are really emotional vampires. They're people who suck all the positive energy out of you. You've met at least one before. Your coworker who all they do is complain about everyone in the office, or your cousin who just can't seem to stay out of drama-filled situations and tells you all about it. Whenever you're with them, your mood radically changes. You begin to feel tired and pessimistic and less patient. Emotional drainers come in many different shapes and sizes, but one thing they all have in common is that they feed off the positive energy of those surrounding them and seem to thrive in negative headspaces. You'll easily spot them by asking yourself before you go out with them, will I feel better or worse after going to coffee with this person? If your answer to that question is worse, you're probably dealing with a vampire, and you need to develop some coping mechanisms or at least some different strategies to deal with their presence in future interactions. There's no need to bring garlic, but there are several options for dealing with this type of folks, and we're going to talk about them from least drastic to most drastic so you can analyze which road you're going to need to take based on whatever emotional drainer is in your life. Number 1, don't open the window. If an emotional vampire knocks on your office cubicle, Facebook message, maybe WhatsApp chat, wherever they may knock, don't let them in. If they start going on and on about how terrible their life is, how everything around them keeps going terribly, and how disgrace seems to follow them around, shut the door. Well, the proverbial door. Ask them politely but firmly if they'd be willing to change the subject to a more positive one. By no means give them advice or try to console them if it's been tried and true that they only want to complain and shut down when you give that advice. It will lead nowhere but making you feel exhausted and frustrated. Establish your boundaries and make them very clear. You're not willing to wallow in pity along with them, and you won't succumb to negativity over and over. Number 2, recharge yourself. If you have no option but to deal with an emotional drainer, like a coworker that you have to interact with, consider neutralizing their effects. After a long meeting with Candy the complainer, you might feel like you are hit with a brick. You could try a little mindfulness meditation at your desk to charge your happy batteries up again, or maybe watch a video of baby octopuses. Whatever helps you bring those positive bars back up helps. If you work out, take it out in the gym. If you're more of a bookworm, submerge yourself in a favorite mystery. Doing things you like after dealing with someone you don't can really help you neutralize the effects of negativity. Number 3, fight the hunger. It happens all too often that after Candy the complainer visits our cubicle or we run into her at a supply closet that we feel the need to lash out or rant with our best friends. Will she ever stop? How can she be so horrible? Wait, you're starting to sound a lot like Candy. Just like the sci-fi vampires, people who spend a lot of time with drainers end up turning into them, which is terrible because it suddenly becomes a cycle of negativity. To avoid turning into an emotional vampire, try to rid yourself of negativity whenever you feel it coming on. Remind yourself of how terrible and tired you feel after Candy visits your office, and use positive mechanisms to channel the negativity. Do something nice for someone close. Pick up trash on your way home. Recycle or repurpose something. Anything that will help you remind yourself to fight the hunger. Number 4, Tell the vampire to look in the mirror. This is similar to point 1 and a little more direct and confrontational, but often it's the best way to deal with someone with whom you don't wish to part with just yet. People sometimes don't notice how bad it's gotten until we tell them. We've spent too much time listening, helping, advising, and patting them on the back that when their vampire-sucking ways get out of control, the process has been so gradual, they've lost sight of who they were before they became the emotional, draining people they are now. In these cases, when you're close enough to someone, say, hey, I really don't want to upset you because I know you're having a hard time, but whenever you go on these complaining, hateful, negative tirades, I don't feel good. It will help them realize that they are not only not helping themselves, but possibly even hurting people they love or losing people they care about. Number 5, put some distance between you and the emotional vampire. If an emotional vampire just won't let you go, you are entitled to put yourself first. Your emotional health is always the most important asset you possess, so putting it in jeopardy for someone who thrives on negativity is dangerous, since it can also affect your mental health. A positive environment helps us become more active, productive, and overall happy, whereas negative environments make us lose perspective of difficult situations, and it's harder to sail our daily lives. Narcissists, manipulators, perpetually negative presences that hurt you or make you feel bad should not be welcome in your life. Remember, take care of yourself first. You should not set yourself on fire to keep others warm, and similarly, you should never be drained to keep others full. All right, Erin, we just heard those 5 ways. Did you have a favorite point?
Yes. Number 1, don't open the window. One of the most important things, I think, for relationships is understanding that you train people how to treat you. And so what you tolerate, if you have these people that are constantly coming up and draining you and taking your time by telling you their stories and needing your help and your advice and whatever it is, they feel that they can do that because you let them do that. So don't open the window. Okay, it's you don't have to be a jerk about it and tell them to bugger off, but you do have to create your own boundaries. If you're allowing these people into your life, that's on you. It's that simple, I mean, now to get yourself out of that might not be that simple. Again, there are delicacies, delicate situations at work and with family and stuff like that, but it is on you to find the nicest, most civilized, I guess, way to close that window. I figure a lot of times when people would come to me with problems and then 2 weeks later they'd come to me and it would be the same problem, and a month and a half later they'd come and say the same problem. I'm like, are you even listening to me when I'm talking to you? No, seriously, like, are you, what?
Hang on, what'd you say?
What? Yeah, exactly. Jeremy. No, but you know what I mean? And so then that adds to another layer of frustration. Not only is your time being taken, but then it's like, are they even listening? Or are they just using you to vent? And the funny thing is that I found when I have drawn boundaries and I have kind of forced these various people in my life to solve their own problems, it's amazing how efficient they are in coming up with the solutions. In other ways, in other words, for you not, if you take away their crutch, you kind of demand for them to solve the problem themselves. And actually, I've had people come up, and friends, and say, God, I'm really glad I figured that out. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, when you figure something out yourself, you never forget it. But when somebody's giving you advice over and over again, it kind of goes in one ear, comes out the other, and that's why you find yourself in a loop with a lot of these people. So anyways, that's a long-winded answer to the idea of you train people how to treat you. It's on you to get them to behave accordingly.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like what you're describing as a backdoor approach to make sure that you're not enabling.
Right, exactly.
In many ways, you set boundaries around your own life, and it causes other people to be forced into the situation to where they have to solve the problem themselves,
Right.
or find the solution elsewhere. And it's in many ways, I think, kinder to a person to do that than to continue to enable them and they never get the lesson.
Right.
And so if you're someone out there who's like, I just don't want to be mean to this person. Well, what real mean is, like, what you're really actually ethically doing wrong is allowing that person to continue to go down the path they're doing instead of establishing an environment to where you protect yourself and it helps them at the same time. And
Exactly.
I think that, I mean, boundaries are really important, and we're the only ones that can establish them. And I mean, I've had to do this with my own close family. And very often, the people that you have to establish boundaries with, I mean, very often, are people that are close family members, people that you can't like write off and get out of your life. But you have to establish some kinds of boundaries to make sure that they don't harm you while they're harming themselves. And yeah, so I mean, and again, I've got people in my life, I haven't kicked them out of my life, but they have limited involvement, and it typically is on my terms. And someone from the outside might say, well, that sounds selfish. No, it's actually good for me and good for them, because if I don't, then I'm going to get dragged down.
Yeah.
And to be dragged down by the people that you love the most is not good. And there are even worse people out there, like Erin.
Yes. Mwahahaha.
Are you twisting your mustache?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this, Erin. How do you deal with people that tax you? I mean, like just emotionally, or well, it would have to be emotionally. People that emotionally tax you. How do you deal with those people? You just cut them out?
Well, no. I mean, it really depends. I mean, like with a family member, you obviously can't just cut them out. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess you could, but again, it's about creating boundaries. So, I mean, you know, your time, you have to prize your time above theirs, right? As they would do the same thing. So, I think the thing is number one, recognize that compulsion to immediately kind of serve. You know what I mean? Like somebody, for me, what would happen was somebody would come and ask me for something, and without even thinking twice about it, I'd be on the case. You know what I mean? And then that's half of the problem, right? So just that being aware of what your knee-jerk reaction is to people asking you for help, without just saying yes right away, think about it for a second. Say, what else have I got going on today? Oh wait, all of that stuff is very important to me. So either the answer is no, I can't do this for you, or we're going to have to revisit this at a later time. This is a time that works for me. So in other words, you start to control the situation, first of all, right? As opposed to in the middle of you doing something, somebody shows up and says, I need your time, I need your time, I need your time. Now you're telling them, no, you can't have my time right now. I am free from 7 until 7:30 tonight to talk to you about this. If you're free at all, by the way, which is also not wrong. But if it is something you feel is important, just not important for right now, you got to start scheduling when you're going to deal with this, as opposed to allowing that person to tell you when you're going to be dealing with it, right? So it's about prioritizing and taking control of the situation. That would kind of be the first thing I would say. Then I can't say anything else.
That's it.
It's also the last thing I would say.
Well, I think it's what you described as the epitome of the quote that the author said when they said you shouldn't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, and you should never be drained to keep others full.
Right.
And I think that's probably a good place for us to wrap up. So until next time, I'm Jeremy Fisher.
And I'm Erin Faulkner.
Reminding you to keep moving, keep thinking, and keep growing.